Othering Podcast explores the world of marginalized communities with a focus on the disabled and LGBTQ+. In our discussions, we will provide a platform for our guests to advocate and share their stories. By delving deep into their difficulties and successes, we will explore the changes necessary to improve lives everywhere. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory.
PEP Radio, part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, advocates for the rights of LGBTQ+ people, the disabled, and marginalized communities. We play music from all 7 continents from 1928 through 2025 in English, Spanish, German, African tribal languages, Korean, and Japanese. We also offer news, history lessons, and are proud to include the Othering Podcast in our programming lineup. Tune in on the Live 365 app, Roku, and Alexa every Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m.
Hello.
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 Okay, today we are talking to Tayler. Tayler is a, wow.
All right, third time's a charm.
Yeah. Okay, today we're talking to Tayler. She is a deaf, disabled, and autistic woman, and after experiencing neglect, medical gaslighting, and lack of access to quality health care and accessibility growing up, she is now a disability and accessibility advocate through her platform online. We will talk more about that. She is passionate about raising awareness for conditions such as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, its comorbidities, rare diseases, and endometriosis. And she has a permanent ostomy bag, learning how to thrive in a world not made for disabled and neurodivergent people. And she is a patient scientist researcher, researching her own genetic condition, turning her experiences into questions and answers. She is always striving to break the stigma and expand conversations about accessibility. Welcome, Tayler.
Yes, welcome.
Thank
now
you.
that we can get that out.
I
We know how
struggled
to
with that one.
read. We really do. We went through school, people. Please believe us. So let's start off with your endometriosis, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's an incredibly debilitating disease. It's incredibly painful. And I've been reading up on it. Some people don't always have symptoms, but you did have symptoms, correct?
Correct. The stage of disease that you have does not correlate with the amount of pain or the symptoms that you have. So someone can have stage 1 endo and have debilitating pain and symptoms, and someone can have stage 4 endo and can have no pain or symptoms. So they don't correlate at all.
And that's kind of an important distinction because sometimes it's always, well, you're not hurt or you're not, contorted into different things. So you must not be feeling bad or everything's fine, which is kind of
Correct.
sometimes what you get from doctors and other people.
Right. Just saying oh, well, you only have stage 1 endo, so it can't be that bad. That is not accurate. That's not correct. Even though doctors will still try to say that to patients, that is not reflective of the disease itself.
Yes.
So is the stage strictly referring to how badly the organs are
Affected?
Yeah, the involvement in different organs and tissues. So stage 1 is more surface level endometriosis on a minimal amount of surface area. And then as you go up stages, it's kind of more widespread and then more deeply infiltrated as well. So affecting more than one organ or body system, and then going a depth of more than a certain amount. I'm sure in the actual diagnostic criteria, they have half a centimeter or something. But yeah, that's kind of how they stage it.
And it's just, it's kind of amazing at how much it changes throughout, different people, because no two person has it exactly the same way either, which I would think kind of makes it a little harder to diagnose, for not to mention the fact that they really have only had one or maybe 2 studies done on endometriosis recently, and it was based on whether or not women were hot if they had endometriosis.
Yeah, a lot of the studies done are from the male perspective of endometriosis, like if there's a correlation between women have endometriosis and them being hotter or not on a scale. Yeah.
It's always good to know that our pain is on a scale of whether or not we're hot or not.
Right. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, that study said that women with endo or people with endo were deemed to be more statistically hotter.
Yes.
I could be remembering that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
I'm pretty sure that is what it said too. And I felt bad because I'm like, well, I might have it, but I don't know yet. So does that mean I'm not quite there? I
Not
wanna
quite
be-
hot enough.
Yeah, I want to be pretty too.
Right.
Because that's the important part, is being pretty when you're sick.
So when
Exactly.
when were you diagnosed with it?
I was diagnosed in 2019. So the only definitive diagnosis method is surgery. There are imaging studies that can be done to help with the diagnosis process, but the only way to definitively rule in or rule out endometriosis is through surgery and pathology. So I had my first surgery in 2019. So it was actually on my 20th birthday. And that was when I was diagnosed. He saw it, and then it was an ablation, which there's two different types of surgery methods. One is an ablation, one is excision. Excision is the gold standard. I didn't know that at the time. So the first one was an ablation. The only piece of tissue that got sent off to pathology was a cyst. And it came back as an endometrioma, which is a cyst that has endometriosis in it. And that was kind of the extent of what I knew. He just said, yeah, you have endo. My report says that my bowel was massively adherent to my abdominal wall. He said that he kind of just like sliced through all of that and removed my cysts, and then I should be good. But I was not good. So then I had surgery again just like 2 months ago. And it was an excision this time.
Can you, does it make you feel better? Does it help alleviate any of the symptoms, or can you still have the symptoms and, just it's gone? Kind of not 100% gone, but
Yeah, so there is no cure for endometriosis. Even surgery is not curative for it. So you can excise as much endo as possible. It's still a possibility that there is endo left and it can grow back. Hormones like birth control are just kind of like a band-aid. They can mask symptoms, but they can't get rid of the disease or stop the disease. So yeah, surgery, it can make you feel better. And I think for my case, I've had maybe 2 periods since surgery. It's kind of hard to tell because I was just having post-op bleeding, and I think that I had I had my first period in that, and then I just finished another one. And from those 2 experiences, I do feel like they have been better than I was before that surgery. I think I still need a few more months to kind of get a really good understanding of how it's actually affected me. But from what my imaging, because they take pictures of what they see in surgery. So from what the pictures showed and then what was excised out of me, it sounds like it should be helpful. And I think that it has been helpful. There is a little caveat to my last surgery. My surgeon kind of did me a disservice. If there's a whole area of endometriosis and she saw a few spots in this big surface area, she excised the entire area and sent that whole piece to pathology and said, just test one spot on here. So if you're comparing the amount of diseased tissue, square inches or centimeters compared to the amount of healthy tissue on that one slab, it's a pretty unequal ratio. And she only sent 2 slabs off to pathology, which means they only did 2 biopsies. So both of my biopsies came back as negative for endometriosis. And in my appointment, my post-op with her, I said, isn't it possible that because you sent off these giant pieces of tissue with only a few spots of disease, that they just biopsied or did pathology on a healthy piece of tissue? And she said, I guess so, but that's just how I do it. So
Wow.
I actually Yeah. But it's really interesting because on my operative report, she outlines in detail all of the areas where there was endometriosis, and then in the photos we went through those, and she said, "This is endometriosis, this is endometriosis," and then even said like, "This brown stain is endometriosis, this blister looks like endo." I had it on my uteral sacral ligament. My appendix was tethered,
Oh,
which is
wow.
indicative of endo. I had an Allen Masters window, which is indicative of deep infiltrating endo. So she outlined those specifically, but then because my two pathology biopsies came back negative, I am now left with more questions actually than answers on what my standing and staging is with endometriosis. So I haven't actually been given a stage, and I don't actually have pathology besides my first surgery to prove that I pathologically have endometriosis. So, because I had it the first time, I've been told that I still have endometriosis. And then this time they basically said IDK.
Wow.
Yeah, that's like ridiculous. Okay, for one, the fact that she just like, well, that's how I do it, so tough shit on you,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Why is she in this line of work? Like,
Yeah.
I understand that doctors and nurses are, just in over their heads a lot since the pandemic. However, you still chose to be in this profession.
Yeah, that's not our fault.
No, that's not our fault that, you're whatever is going on in that weird brain of yours.
Well, I guess it is our fault, but it's not our problem.
Well, no,
It's
it's
our
not our
fault because
fault.
we're all going to see her, so she's inundated. But it's not our problem. You still got to do your
Then
job.
pay for somebody else to go through school. That's how, I mean,
I
pay it
agree.
forward so that other people can do it and such. If that's, such a huge issue, help
Right.
make, remedy those issues. And,
Right.
but still, regardless of how it is, there's no need
Gotta take
to
care
ever
of it.
be flippant to a patient and tell them, oh, well, sucks to be you. Sorry.
That's
And
just the way it is.
yeah, I mean, this isn't high school where you can be mean girl all you want.
Right.
And
The other issue that I had with that is that my first surgery, he said that my colon was massively adherent to my abdominal wall and that there was adhesions all over it. And so I made sure to emphasize with them, please look at my colon, please biopsy the adhesions, all of that, because this was a combination surgery. I was having the endometriosis excision, but I was also having a total colectomy, and so they took my entire large intestine out in the same surgery. And I have a picture of my colon after it was removed. It's like laying on the table, and they took a picture of it.
it was
And
awesome, by the way. I loved that picture.
right, I also love it. I'm proud of it. But they didn't biopsy my colon, and there's also no images intraoperatively. So there's no images of any adhesions or any part of my colon while it was still inside of me. So in my post-op, I said, there's no mention of my colon in my report. There's no photos of it. And there was no biopsies taken from it. So did you even look at my colon? And she was like, well, it would be standard too. So I'm sure that I did. And I'm like, okay, well, there's no record of it. And that's like not something that we can like go back to
Yeah.
do. My colon's gone. It's in the
Yeah.
trash. They burned it or whatever they do with it. There's no possible way to redo any of that. So I'll basically just never have an answer on if I actually had adhesions, if it was endo, why my colon looks inflamed in that photo, if there was anything on the pathology. Like I won't ever have answers to that because they just didn't do it, even though I asked multiple times.
That's also, I would think, even if it wasn't removed because of your endometriosis at that time, that it would be important to biopsy it to make sure that, there's nothing else going on within your
Right,
body.
because well, I was having my colon removed more so in relation to these GI issues I was having, which is why I have my ostomy bag. And I have my ostomy bag not because of IBD. A lot of people have ostomy bags because of IBD, irritable bowel disease. They were more focused on the fact that my colon was paralyzed. But then when my colon was removed, and I have this photo of it, and I've shown it to doctors since, a part of my colon looks severely inflamed,
Yes.
swollen, red, angry. And now the question has come up of, was there underlying irritable bowel disease that was just not caught? Because I did have symptoms of that. I had blood in my stool, and I had mucus, and I had these pain and other symptoms. But again, they didn't do a biopsy, so I will never know if I actually had underlying irritable bowel disease that was just overlooked because of the other issues.
It doesn't make sense to me though to overlook that. If you see something bright red, like I love the pictures by the way because they were just awesome and it was just really cool to see that. But you could tell that it was swollen, it was inflamed. I mean, it was bright red and
Yeah.
not like
It was like 3 times the size
yeah,
of the rest of my colon. Like it was, yeah.
yeah. It was like looking at a pencil sharpener on one end to a really tiny pencil on the other end. I
Right.
mean, that's kind of how it seemed to me. And I would be really worried about the end that looks like a pencil sharpener and at how red it was. And I would be like, could this be IBD? Could this be something else? And
Yeah.
to not have answers to any of that, I don't even understand.
And their rationale behind it is, well, it's getting removed anyways. And I'm like, I can see that, but at the same time, as a patient, and you go through years and years of these symptoms and then being brushed off and told that it is not as bad as you say that it is, it's really validating and nice to actually have the answers after the
Yes.
fact. And now
Yeah.
post-op, I'm having issues because I kept my rectum and my anus. And so I'm having issues post-op now with irritation and pain in my rectum. And I'm gonna have to go through more investigation to see why that is happening. And if it comes back to be some sort of inflammatory disease or inflammation or something, then that's gonna be even more indicative that maybe there was something underlying that was just missed before. But again, I'll never know. And if they did biopsy it when they were supposed to, then maybe I could have more answers as to why I'm having pain and issues now.
And they could have also, maybe if they had checked before, been able to mitigate things and keep you from having to then go back under again and get
Right.
opened up again and have all of these things. Because every surgery, regardless of whether or not you're allergic to those things that they use to put you under, is still
A
dangerous.
risk, yeah. Yeah. It could have, like, if I did have IBD or some other inflammation, process going on that was affecting my rectum and we knew that, then we could have addressed that and removed my rectum in the same surgery.
Right.
Like instead of it being separate things. Who like that is getting ahead of what I currently know now, but like if that is the case, then that's just like another thing that I'll have to address after the fact than doing it all at once like I could have.
Yeah, and it just angers me because I understand it how frustrating and even debilitating in a way being gaslit by doctors or family or friends and oh, it's not as bad as you think it is and you're fine, just walk it off and all of those things and it hurts because you feel like, wait a minute, am I going crazy then? Is this just really all in my head? And then when you find out that there was something wrong and they still fuck you over,
Yeah.
it's it makes me even angrier because it's again, why did you even go for this profession?
Right. Well, and I just feel for other patients because I have, through trial and error and many, many years, have learned how specific and how much knowledge and information you need to have as the patient that you shouldn't have to have.
Yes.
And I go in with like this like whole background of information that would not otherwise be intuitive and still experience this. So other patients that are new to this or that don't have access to the information or don't know how to find this information are going in and experiencing the same thing on an even like harder level.
Yeah.
It just is infuriating.
Yes.
Because it's like, what else are we supposed to do? We're literally doing above and beyond what we need to as the patient, and it's still not enough.
And it's ridiculous. We shouldn't have to be like doctors of our own diseases and syndromes in order to get help from a doctor that knows those syndromes or diseases. And if you don't
Exactly.
know, please say, look, I don't know. Let's find somebody who does know. And let's, coordinate with them. Let's help each other out in this way. I can learn from you. You get the help that you need. Instead of just being like, well, oh well, that's all I could do. And just
Right.
leave you in the lurch.
I'd rather have an I don't know or someone receptive to research that I bring in or information that I have that they might not know yet. Like there's a lot of room for improvement in that area on the provider side that could be done.
Did you have issues with insurance through all of this?
I did. Insurance originally tried to deny my surgeries because they saw that I was being kept in the hospital for the endo part, and endo surgery is supposed to be outpatient. So then they denied it because they saw that I was being requested to be kept inpatient. And then we had to have a peer-to-peer for them to realize that the surgeries were actually combined. This time that was the least of my worries because I was going through the pre-op process and I met with the anesthesia nurse and we were going through all of, the possible risks. Like, do you have sleep apnea? Do this and this. And she said, do you faint or do you ever lose consciousness? And I said, yes, I have, a diagnosis of POTS, which causes me to faint. And it's been exacerbated on my period lately. And I don't know why she took that and ran with it, but it turned into this whole thing. She was like, well, we'll have to get cardiology clearance. And I was like, okay, here's the name of my cardiologist. I had an appointment last week. She knows about my surgery and she cleared me. She contacted my cardiologist and got complete clearance, but then told my two surgeons and the entire anesthesiology team that I didn't have clearance and blatantly lied to them. And so then they canceled my surgery. Just 2 weeks before it was supposed to happen. And I recorded the entire thing and I played phone tag. I cried to her on the phone and was like, I don't understand where this miscommunication is. She acted empathetic to me. She acted like she had nothing to do with it. And she was on my side, even though she was the only line of communication between all of these people. I called my cardiologist and she was like, we 100% gave clearance. I'll write you a letter on an official letterhead. I had her fax it to them. I contacted patient advocacy. I contacted both of my surgeons, and it all came down to that this one nurse apparently just didn't like that I was going to have surgery when I experienced passing out episodes and lied to all of the other people. She had told my cardiologist that my surgeons weren't the ones that were comfortable with it, even though that never even happened. But then she was telling my surgeons that my cardiologist didn't give me clearance. So I had to go over her head. And eventually it ended up working out and I got to keep my surgery date and I was fine. But that was the biggest problem with the surgery. And usually it is insurance. So I feel like that was more of a one-off situation and doesn't happen that often. I don't know why the heck she felt the need to do that. But
I don't understand that either. And it just seems ridiculous to sit there and, as a nurse, an intake nurse, sitting there and deciding for all the doctors that, oh no, you don't need to have this because you faint. Well, you faint because you have issues.
yeah, yes.
And you're
I was
trying
like,
to stop the issues.
I'm fainting on my period because of the pain and symptoms my endo is causing, yet you're trying to cancel the surgery that will fix my endo, which is causing the symptoms, which is making me faint. Make that make sense.
Yeah,
How am I
Yeah.
supposed to be syncope free when that is what will make me not have the symptoms that will make me syncope free? I'm confused. Like it was so weird.
Yeah, not to overstep, but we have to providers need to understand, insurance providers, nurses, doctors, that just because we don't have a PhD, MD after our names doesn't mean we don't know anything. And it doesn't mean that you need to go over what everybody else is saying. Yes, this is great. This is good. Let's do it. And then decide on your own to cancel it all. It doesn't make sense.
I just don't understand how she had that power. And what's what makes me nervous is that she's still doing, like, she's still in that role and still doing that. And I'm just like, I don't know how many other patients are being screwed over by
Yeah, I
this.
mean,
Hopefully not very many.
That's
but
terrifying, because how many other people are having incredibly hard issues trying to get in to get their surgeries, that she's deciding, you don't need it. You can
Well,
just
they're making
suffer.
it so difficult. Like, I wanted to give up and just say, you know what, screw it. Maybe I don't deserve the surgery. Maybe I should just keep living the way I am. Like, screw it. I'm just not going to keep fighting this. It is exhausting because by that point, you already have the surgery scheduled. You have all of your stuff in place to go through the surgery. You're mentally trying to prepare yourself. Like, you don't have the energy, time, bandwidth, like mental capacity to then fight with people about it.
Yes. I'm glad that you had the ability to fight, because it's frightening at how many people just can't, or don't have the
Right.
support to be able to fight and get what
Right.
they need done.
Right. And patient advocacy, like, you would think that those are the people that would fight for you, but when I contacted them, they were not helpful about it either. They were like, well, it seems like your cardiologist didn't give clearance. And I'm like, but they did. Like, I had to fight with patient advocacy as well about it. So it was wild.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Are they patient advocacy for the patients, or the patient advocacy for the insurance company? I mean,
Right.
who are
Exactly.
they advocating for then?
Exactly. And that was, I mean, I guess kind of indirectly, I had issues with my insurance. I didn't have a primary care throughout this entire surgery and process because my hospital that my primary care was with and my insurance decided that they couldn't negotiate their terms. And my hospital dropped all patients that had that insurance with maybe 2 days notice, which is actually illegal, by the way. That's considered abandoning your patients. And so I didn't have a primary care provider who I could contact or see if I had any issues post-op. So I was also fighting with my insurance and with the hospital in that capacity as well. Yeah.
And that's not your job, to have to fight everybody in the system in order to get what you need so that you can live at least a decent life. We're not expecting 100% miracle cures here, but
Right.
human decency goes a long way. And, they always talk about, well, it's, on you to make sure that you are handling yourself and eating right. And you could do all of that and still get sick.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
when you have people that are like, well, then tough. Now you're going to get sicker, not only because you can't get the help you need, but because you're also dealing with the mental load and the physical load on your body
Stress.
of,
Yeah.
the stress of having to argue.
Yep.
And that just makes anybody feel worse. And I don't understand.
My stress levels leading up to this surgery were absolutely wild. Like, it was almost like unmanageable. I saw my therapist, I'm pretty sure 4 times a week, like leading up to my surgery, because I was just managing so many layers of this. Yeah, it was a lot.
And on top of that, you have autism and ADHD too.
Yes.
And doing all of that neurotypically is difficult.
Yep.
I would imagine. I'm not neurotypical myself, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
having to do that on top of being neurodivergent is just, stick a nice hot fork in my brain at this moment. Because that's just
Yeah.
even thinking about it when you were going through it, and I was following along. Sounds like I'm a stalker, but I'm not really, people, so don't worry, I'm not going to come and surprise, I'm at your house. But I was watching that and I felt myself get upset and angry, and just at the sheer dismissal of it all for you, and it just felt like a huge slap in the face. And I can't I can imagine how angry you were feeling that.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like the layer of neurodivergence doesn't get really talked about on top of like dealing with all of this. And it's a huge contributing factor to like how these things are addressed and handled and like the fatigue from it. But I feel like it's hard to describe, so then it doesn't get talked about a whole lot, especially because us neurodivergent people, we've been neurodivergent our whole lives. And so it's hard to recognize that that is something that is like a big kind of layer to it all, which is like something I've been trying to unpack. But even just in my communication and delivery of information to the people trying to like get this whole situation figured out of why my surgery is getting canceled, I'm pretty sure they were perceiving me as rude, a bitch, cranky, like all of these were like, and I am just trying to be a clear communicator. I'm typing out the facts. I'm saying what is true, what is factual, what's happening, trying to be as clear as possible so there's no more miscommunication, because that's what I thought it was at first. No, it was just intentional, someone deliberately trying to cancel my surgery. But that gets perceived by neurotypical people as someone being abrasive or harsh or rude. And I still don't understand it, probably never will, but that just doesn't make sense to me.
Not at all. Fighting for oneself should never be labeled as being a bitch or being, rude or abrasive.
Did you have family or friends there to help you fight for it, or were you pretty much alone?
I was pretty much alone beforehand, before my surgery, fighting for all of that. After the fact, when I was in the hospital, because there was things that happened in the hospital, I had family and friends there for me for that, which was helpful. That also was helping me remember that what was happening was real, so that I'm not saying like, well, maybe I was misunderstanding this in like this situation, or maybe I was interpreting what they're saying wrong, or maybe I am not understanding their tone. Like, it was nice to have people validating, like, no, that doctor completely dismissed you and wanted to be shoving forks in her eyeballs rather than talk to you. Like, that type of situation.
And I think that when that's the biggest thing is that I think neurotypicals don't always understand is that we gaslight ourselves all the time already. And, oh, well, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I didn't speak it clearly enough.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly double checking how we sound, how we speak already. And then to have somebody gaslight you on top of you gaslighting yourself, it makes it even worse. And it kind of, at least, like, I don't want to speak for all neurodivergent people, but for me, it felt like I was splitting reality. And that I was in a dream world, or, when those things happen, it's like, no, I must have heard wrong. It's just my silly brain, being stupid and hearing stupid things. And no, it couldn't have been that. And in fact, it usually is true.
I do that, and then I also turn it into like a self-deprecating, like, well, I must just be a negative person. Well, I must just be trying to see the worst in everybody. Well, I must just be looking for something to be mad about. Like, even though they actually were meaning it like that. And even in situations where it's someone being deliberate, but in a like kind of a sneaky way, like to neurotypical people, they don't catch on right away. And they're like, no, they didn't mean it like that. Like, they have good intentions. And then it ends up, people end up realizing later, oh, wait, it actually was like that. And I knew all along. Like, neurodivergent people can pick up, it's like that pattern recognition. Like, we pick that up quick.
Yes.
And it's really frustrating because then that's when I actually do look like a bitch. Because I'm like trying to say, like, no, they are, like, I'm pretty sure I'm reading this right. And then it's easy to brush that off, being like, well, no, you don't read social situations right, or no, you were misunderstanding their tone or their context. Like, that's not what it is. So it's a difficult thing to navigate, for sure.
And especially, like, for me, I didn't find out until recently that I was neurodivergent. So, like, this whole time I was going through all of these things and realizing these different patterns and thinking, nah, I'm totally wrong. I'm totally off my rocker type of thing. And
Yep.
then finding out that, oh, it's because I'm neurodivergent and I'm autistic and ADHD at the same time. And it's just like, holy shit, all of those times that I could sense those vibes, it was right.
Yeah.
And I dismissed them because I felt like, no, I must be wrong. I'm seeing things that because, I'm from this background, or I'm just imagining things because I'm a female, or, ridiculous things like that go through your head a lot of times. And I don't think a lot of people like to talk about that, and we should.
And the unlearning of that is hard, but also I've been in this like balance of trying to use that as an explanation, but not necessarily an excuse, because I never want to use my autism as an excuse to like have a certain behavior or like talk a certain way that might not be considerate of the other person. Because I'm not trying to do that. Like, I'm not trying to just be rude to be rude and then be like, oh, well, it's because I'm autistic. Like,
Yeah, no.
It's genuinely like an explanation of I am being a clear communicator, but it's coming off as monotone, and I'm not adding fluffy stuff, and I'm also not putting exclamation points at the end of every sentence. That is an explanation of my communication style, and not necessarily an excuse of just like, I'm just going to be rude to be rude, you know?
Yeah. And I have a tendency to still, because again, I'm still learning through this, is that I mimic how everybody else talks, especially like in written communications, because I'm trying to, I guess you could say, ease everybody else so that it doesn't come off as, wow, Dory's such a shit. What the fuck? Who's
Yeah.
going to talk to her? And so
Right.
I will put in those exclamation points or the smiley faces, that people, sometimes I do that because I like doing that anyway, but I'll put in the ones that, somebody else will use because it's like, oh, well, I got to match, and it's subconscious and I do it automatically, but it's like at the same time, I'll find myself stopping myself and being like, no, just why can't I talk the way I want
Right.
to talk, how it seems more natural for me? And
Yeah.
unlearning that mimic is really hard.
Right. It is really hard. And I feel like for me, that mimic starts to kind of go away when I become overwhelmed, overstimulated, and can't process whatever is happening in the situation or the line of communication. And so then that's when I get labeled as harsh or abrasive, because the mimicking all of a sudden stops. And so if they are using exclamation points and all that stuff, and I have been up until the point of, okay, well, now I'm getting frustrated with the situation. What I'm trying to say isn't coming across clearly, or I'm not being understood in a certain way, then I stop mimicking, because at that point, it's like the override of like overstimulation takes over. And so that's when they're seeing the actual like autistic part of my communication style and not just the mimicking, which is really difficult to then receive that type of like criticism or like just a certain response of like, oh, they're not being as like receptive or responsive to me anymore because I'm not being a fluffy, exclamation point mimicking person. And to not take that as like a direct reflection of just myself as a person is really difficult, because
Yes.
I have literally been told to my face that my autistic traits are not desirable, and that someone didn't want to be my friend because of these autistic traits that they deem as negative or as undesirable.
Wow. No, 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 no.
Yeah.
Wow.
People
I'm not friends with that person
Good.
anymore.
People
obviously, but-
amaze me at the level of. They claim that we're assholes, but yet the level of assholishness that they give is off the charts a lot of times. Like,
Right.
where do you get off?
Right.
And usually when I'm mad is when I kind of stop masking myself and I get like,
Yeah.
I-
Yeah.
I'll stop being able to find words and I just go silent because I'm just so angry. And like, if I do say things, I have to apologize later because sometimes they're way meaner than I mean them to be.
I'm usually the
Yes.
brunt of that.
Shut up.
Yet my husband's also the brunt of that. I 100% understand that like process of how that happens. Like anger, being mad is like the number one thing that kind of is like takes off the mask and is difficult. But for some reason, I still working through it in therapy to figure out why. I think that some like how emotions were handled in my childhood, like I wasn't allowed to have negative emotions that weren't anger. So like now when if I'm like sad or overwhelmed or frustrated, that's the primary emotion, but the secondary emotion takes over and it's anger. And then immediately mask off and then boom, it's a whole tumble down the hill that we can't stop.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's like word vomit and verbal, like every word in the dictionary starts coming out, and you're like pulling words that even the top linguists don't know because you're so angry. And
Yeah.
it's just, and for so long, like for me, it made me feel bad and like there was something wrong with me. And when I finally got the right therapist, and again, I want to say that it is so imperative to find the right therapist because previous ones were awful for me.
It took both of us over 40 years to find the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, not over 40 years. We weren't looking at the age of like 0.
We've been alive for more than 40 years.
Yeah,
before
but
we
I
found
wasn't
one.
looking for one at the age of like 2 months.
You know what I mean.
But having her and being able to talk to her, it kind of gives a name to a lot of my anger of just, I didn't know those things. I didn't understand what I was thinking and feeling. So
Yep.
the easiest one to latch onto is anger.
Yeah. Yep. I relate to that. It's just like the thing that comes out. And I think like the nature, at least of my like when I get overwhelmed with things, my meltdowns can easily be mistaken for like anger type, like a lot of people think that meltdowns and tantrums are the same thing, and they're not.
No.
And like we know that, but they still get kind of like lumped together. And a lot of times tantrums happen when someone is mad about something that they didn't get their way. And so I was like taught or somehow picked up along the way that like my meltdowns were a result of like anger and not getting what I wanted. So then a lot of the times that's like I still have that like shame associated with it, you know?
Yep. I understand exactly what you're talking about. And it's like a really deep rooted shame in thinking,
Very,
even if
very deep rooted.
even if your parents never taught you those things, it's like because you see it in society or you read about it in books at how, well, this person didn't get their way, so they acted up. And acting up is like, thrashing and screaming. And sometimes it is that they didn't get their way. But then it kind of ingrains in you that if I act up, if I get upset, and I don't act like the typical person's supposed to, then I must too be having a tantrum. And tantrums are bad. Can't have a tantrum. And so then you have this horrible shame of when you do get angry and the word vomit starts and you're just in it. Even if it's not angry, you're sad or depressed, and it manifests itself as looking like anger because for so long that's the easiest one to latch onto and the easiest one to understand. And so then for me, it was like I felt like I am the biggest childish person on earth because I'm an adult. I shouldn't be feeling these things. I shouldn't be acting that way because that's not how quote unquote adults are supposed to act.
I feel the exact same way. I've been trying to be more open about like my meltdowns and different ways that I am like processing this overstimulation and like just like overload of information. But I still telling people feel that deep shame. I feel embarrassment. I feel like I shouldn't be talking about how I'm like behaving this way as an adult. Like I still feel very stigmatized by it. And I know that talking about it is what breaks that down, but it's really, really difficult.
It is. And sorry, go ahead.
Did you have a lot of issues in school growing up socially?
I had a lot of issues in school growing up with like not being able to like have friendships
Yeah.
that like were neurotypical. So like I could like make a friend, but then I couldn't keep the friend because then they would find out that I was like weird or,
Yes.
however,
Yeah.
whatever word you want to use. So like I feel like I cycled through friends and never got to have deep friendships. So then I was like, well, something's wrong with me
Mm-hmm.
because I can't seem to like keep a close friend. And I just spent a lot of time like alone at school. Like I'd sit by the door at recess, or I eventually was just allowed to be in the classroom like with the teachers, and I was labeled the teacher's pet. I always
Mm-hmm.
got along with people that were older than me, more mature. I was always labeled as like, quote, the wise one or like mature or whatever you want to call it, old soul, whatever.
Hmm.
Um,
Wise beyond your years, and yep,
yeah.
that's
Yep.
exactly how I was. And I know it was out of my control, but at the same time it kind of angers me that I went through that growing up, that same thing of I can't form relationships. Like I
Yeah.
could find a friend, I could befriend them real fast, but it's
Yeah.
like after the year it was really difficult to
Yeah.
keep up with that, whatever it is that I needed to do in order to keep them.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
feeling of chasing them, and having to always call them or have to always get in touch with them, and the fear of them finding out, oh, you're weird, why don't you
Yeah.
have the posters, or why don't you have all of these tapes, yes, I'm dating myself, and all of those things, why don't you have a Walkman? Oh, well,
Yeah.
because that just wasn't necessarily me. And
Right.
so I tried hard to mask that and mimic what everybody else did so that I could get those friends. And
Yep.
you talking about that, like, holy shit. It just makes me mad because, again, for over 40 years, I thought something was totally wrong with me.
Yep, I mean, I still will feel the same way. I still don't understand like the, I guess, like typical appropriate way to like have friendships. Like it's either like you don't reach out enough or you don't like connect in the right ways, or it's like too much, or there's like a certain level of like the whole new thing is low maintenance friendships,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and having like these unspoken understandings of like where a friendship stands with like a certain level of communication, like that just has never made sense to me. And so I feel like I always like, even adulthood, I really really struggle with like adult friendships and this like unspoken level of understanding, or expectations or lack thereof.
Yeah.
I was told in a previous friendship, the same one that didn't like my autistic traits and deemed them negative, that I had an unrealistic expectation level for friendships. Like my standards were unrealistic, and that I viewed friendships as transactional because I felt like both people should be like putting an equal amount of effort into the
Yes.
friendship,
They should.
like
That's,
yeah, I still feel that way.
yeah.
I get friendships ebb and flow and people's lives ebb and flow, but like at the end of the day, like you both have the intention to like be putting in the same amount of effort into
Yeah.
each other, but to also have an open line of communication about that. And so then I was told, well, I've never had to have these conversations with a friend before. And I'm like, I'm sorry, a friend has never cared to like be on the same level of understanding before, question mark. Like
Yeah.
I don't really know what to tell you. Like I just don't have the ability to have that unspoken understanding of like this is where we stand. Because it also doesn't feel good to think that you're better friends with someone than they have of you,
Yes.
and to
Right.
be like having this like idea of a friendship with a neurodivergent brain, especially with a neurotypical person, that is just like not reality because they don't communicate that to you, but then they get mad when you try to communicate it, you know?
Yes, no, 100%. Because growing up, I always thought, well, if you're going to be my friend and you put in the effort, I have to put in the equal amount of effort
Hmm.
because that's what friends do. That's relationships, I thought, and I didn't understand the nuance of, well, sometimes I may not want to talk to you, or, it always felt like they were just better friends with everybody else. And that I
Yes.
was always, there's something wrong with me, and I was pushing them away. And so
Yes.
if I didn't chase them, they didn't want to be with, friends with me. And like I hit a point at, in my 20s, and 30s, like, you know what? I don't want to chase you anymore. If I have to chase you, then obviously, to me, in my head, it's one-sided.
Yeah.
So it's not worth my time then to
Yeah.
be chasing you, calling you, emailing you, and never get an answer. And so I just assumed I was some freak, again, like, from outer space, and that I was one of those aliens that they talk about in, the History Channel of, and I just never went back. And
Yeah.
it's just, and it angers me and upsets me because I feel like nobody should ever have to feel that way.
Yeah.
That feeling of you're not good enough for other people. And
Yeah.
we should all be able to know that we think differently, we feel differently. And because of that, we're just as good and we're just as worthy. And like, I feel like I am a loyal person. And
Yeah. I was always so confused. I'm like, I'm so loyal. I'm such a loyal friend. I don't understand why these people don't want to be my friend. Like, there must be something wrong with me. It must be because I'm weird. It must be because of X, Y, and Z, like, thing that inevitably relates back to being neurodivergent. And so that gives you, once you finally realize, like, oh, maybe it is, like, I feel like there's, like, the 5 stages of grief, like, that, but with neurodivergence of like, okay, so that must mean that all these things are bad then, because that's all I've been taught my whole life. And then learning, okay, well, they're not necessarily bad. You've just never been met with like the right people to accept that. But then it's like, well, where are they?
Yes.
Because it's been however many years, where are they? And trying to like unmask and be yourself and be true to like your neurodivergent characteristics, but then still have friends. It's like, how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. And I have been like, do I text these people? Oh my God, they're gonna think I'm stalking them because I texted yesterday too. But if I don't say anything, they're gonna think I hate them. And it's hard to navigate these things. And the reason why I was, I lucked up and got Mike was because he annoyed the hell out of me. And he bugged me. So it was like, okay, he gets it. And in my head, and like, I feel like though trying to find those female relationships and even male to female relationships as just friends, is really hard because I don't understand what is expected.
Right. I don't either, and I wish I had an answer. And I feel like that's kind of the same way that I ended up with my husband. Is I'm pretty sure I just like didn't leave him alone. Like I just was like, oh, you're like, I'm gonna bother you now. And he was just so go with the flow and like just kind of was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then we were like never got separated. So, and we've been together since we were 16. So like it's like, I don't know, I somehow
really
got lucky.
awesome. That's really awesome. I think that is really sweet and awesome.
Thanks. I think I just got really lucky because I don't know. Well, and then it was a whole thing of once I finally was like diagnosed as autistic, I like went to him and I was like, "Oh my gosh, can you like it felt so mind-blowing to me, but he was like, this is how I've always known you." Like something new would happen. Like my first like meltdown after I was diagnosed, I was like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on? What's wrong with me?" And he's like, "You've been doing this since we were 6, like since I knew you. Like this is how it's been. There's just like a name to it now." And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It just felt like such new territory after getting diagnosed, even though it was all the same stuff,
Yes. And Mike said the same thing with me, but it's like every time something new would happen and I would react a certain way and I'm like, oh my God, is this because of my neurodivergence? And he's like, what are you talking about? You've always been this way. And it's like, and he's like, when did you mask with me?
Right.
And it's like, holy shit, I didn't mask with you. And and then it's like, it kind of hits you hard. Like I did find at least somebody I didn't have to mask with. And that I was able to be myself with. And I mean, Mike and I have been together since he was a teenager and I was 20. He was legal before I touched him. Let me get that out there. I was not one of those rob the cradle people.
Yeah.
I was normal with him. And I never realized how I had masked with everyone else though. And how I just felt like I had to put on a show and just be like this either outrageous type of person or completely quiet. It was
Yep,
never quite in between.
I've always struggled with feeling like I need to be a bubbly person. That's how I describe them. A bubbly person. Because that's not like in my unmasked like true self, that's not who I am. I feel like I'm a pretty good in between of like blank and bubbly. But always feel like I have to be bubbly because it seems like those are the people that everybody is kind of drawn to. And so I'm like, well, if they're not drawn to who I actually am, I need to be a bubbly person. But that's exhausting because that's not who I am. And yeah, I feel the same, like having to be one way or another. Or like when I finally do unmask and like I have like a moment of like autistic joy where I'm just so excited, then being like met with like like what, you need to calm down, like this isn't the appropriate like setting to be like that, then that immediately is like, okay, shoot, and shut down. It's it's a really difficult thing to navigate.
Very.
Growing up and even through work, anytime I'm not the loud one, the one always talking, the class clown or whatever, I always felt like I never fit in. I still do because I'm a very quiet person, especially at work. Anywhere outside of home. So I always feel like I don't fit in because I'm not the loud one.
Yeah, because usually, and I don't think that they necessarily do have that many friends, or it just seems that way because they are so boisterous and so loud naturally that everybody has to look at them because it's like, I think the quiet ones are more like us where it's, oh my God, not this person again. They're too damn happy. Why do they have to be so damn happy?
Right.
And not because we don't like happy. We like happy. We just don't like overly happy. Where it's like everything is, we're in World War III. Isn't that wonderful? And it's like, what is wrong with you? Have some sense. Be unhappy.
I've always been a huge advocate for like just being okay with like the uncomfortable kind of feelings, like even if you can't identify them. I feel like that's something that like a lot of autistic people struggle with, is actually identifying what you're feeling. But if like you know that your body is not obviously feeling great for whatever reason, like sitting in that and not just like trying to go back to like, oh, let's just be happy. If we're just happy, everything will go away, you know. And for a while people labeled me as a pessimist. Like I was literally told I was a pessimist for a while, and a rain cloud. I have a rain cloud tattoo because I just eventually was like, all right, I just identify with rain clouds now because apparently that's what I am. And I think I am actually just a realist who like experiences a wide range of emotions like everybody else, you know?
And and I was labeled the rain cloud too, or you're so dour and so sad. Why are you so always, you know, the party pooper? And
we feel things so deeply.
Yes, and especially like injustices. It just I can't handle those because I just don't understand the hatred. I don't understand any of that. It doesn't make sense to me how you could hate somebody so much, or how you could look at somebody and treat them the way that some people do. It just, you know, it doesn't make sense. You could try and, well, you know, it doesn't make sense because it's irrational. But I think that it's kind of like a little bit of irrationality and jealousy mixed together.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just my neurotypical thoughts trying to intrude on my neurodivergent brain in thinking those things. But that's kind of how it seems to me, is that the pattern is they hate what they can't have.
Right.
And so that's jealousy.
Yeah.
And,
The devil's advocate in me would be like, well, that's black and white thinking.
Yes, it is.
Because I do that too. I struggle with that too. I really struggle with the gray area and the nuances and have very black and white. And I'm trying to, you know, learn that there's more than that, and there can be in-betweens. But it's so funny, like talking to another neurodivergent brain and then being able to like pick out the exact things that I have in my own.
Yes, and dare I say it, I think it's refreshing and it's nice and it's fun and it's freeing to, oh my God, I do that too, or oh my God, I think that too. And that joy for me, I want to share because so many people don't get that. Some, like, for instance, I knew that I was never going to get diagnosed with this either. And in school, like my mom growing up, she said, I always thought that you guys were neurodivergent, that there was something. But because you guys did so well in school, nobody was going to think anything of it. We weren't, breaking our arms every 5 seconds, standing on top of the ceiling and hanging upside down or things like that. So, and I think that's a disservice to so many people because not all of us are we are bouncing, but it's not always visible.
Well, and I'm hoping, with there's a lot of people who argue like, oh, everybody's autistic now, or everybody has ADHD now. It's like, no, there's more awareness and understanding that it's not just white little boys, that are bouncing off the walls and that are exhibiting X, Y, and Z. Like, it presents in so many more ways than what has been understood up until this point, so that now people are being accurately identified as what they actually are, and then they're getting the accommodations, they're getting the treatment, and they're getting what they need in the world to better just like interact. Like, I just describe it as like the way that I interact with the world. And I feel like if I would have had those answers and understandings as a child, I could have avoided a lot of the like autistic trauma and hurt that I now carry as an adult.
Yes. And there's so many things that if I had known, if they had even thought to, start thinking about those things before 2009, I feel like I wouldn't have done a lot of the things that I did either. I would have been able to, I am thinking this way. This is not exactly what that means. And stop reading it in black and white and only two sides of a coin when there's so many shades in between. And, seeing it in different lights and understanding those nuances and understanding that when somebody says something that they don't always mean that. Because I grew up thinking, well, you said it, you have to mean it.
Right.
And so, minus when somebody tells you who they are, that they mean it. Of course they mean that. But other than that, it's just so much I did, and I would love to have taken back because then I would have understood my thought process, why I did what I did, and not been, I guess you could say, stupid with some of the things that I did growing up. I mean, I did a lot of really kind of stupid teenage stuff. But I did it because I thought that's what teenagers do. That's what they're supposed to do.
I kind of the same way, like I just don't like looking back how I handled a lot of situations.
Yes.
Like if I would have known that like my brain just genuinely thinks differently than the other people that I am typically interacting with, like I would have handled things so much differently, and I could have had better guidance and better advice on how to handle things, and would have been able to like better support the emotions that I was feeling rather than, lashing out, but trying to do it in like a neurotypical way, if that makes sense.
Yes,
I don't know.
it does.
Like I just am like, I just don't like the way that I like interacted and handle certain things, especially when I was like being mistreated by neurotypical people.
Yes.
Trying to make friends and socialize and all of that as a teenager. So
because
it's definitely difficult.
Do you find that you can remember with detail certain things that you like wish that you had said, you know what, I should have said this back then, or if I had only understood, I wouldn't have said X, Y, and Z, because there are times when I couldn't remember what I had for breakfast. I mean, I do because I usually have the same thing, but anyway, but I could sit there and I could remember distinctly certain conversations with people I thought were friends or exes or something like that. And I just think, oh my God, if only I had known, I wouldn't have acted so deeply, and I would have been able to better handle how I talked, or, wouldn't have shut down quite so easily. Because like for me, if you say something mean to me, I will completely shut down and I will take it. And but if as soon as you say something bad about somebody that I know, even if I don't know them, please duck. Because I will, like, the words coming, this, sometimes the fists have come, and just because that's how I am, I will protect anybody, but I can't protect myself.
Yeah. And I feel like I still struggle with that as an adult in a professional setting and sense.
Hmm.
And I'm still trying to understand like how to navigate stuff like that in a professional way, but then still be true to like how I'm feeling.
Yep.
Because yeah, you can't just like lash out, or you can't just, you have to like maintain these certain professional relationships and everything. And especially when people are saying one thing that they don't actually mean, but everybody else understands that that's not what they actually mean. And you have to figure out later that they didn't mean it's really hard. And
I
to be
just
able to navigate that stuff. Yeah.
I wish people could just be like, be nice and fair and just write it out what they literally mean.
Right.
And then you can, talk out the side of your mouth all you want, but just write it out for us neurodivergent so that we understand what you're trying to say.
Understand. Right. Well, and it's, yeah, like there was one situation where beforehand I was told, oh, we don't really like this person, but we, try to get along with them. And then we're interacting with them, and everybody seems to think that that's their best friend. And then
Yes.
I'm like, well, they seem to be really genuine. Like maybe they actually do like them now. I don't know. And so then after the fact, I, went to be like, oh, they're great. And they're like, oh, I couldn't stand that interaction. And I'm like, okay, oh my goodness, I don't know what is happening right now.
Yeah,
Like,
I've had those instances where it's like, I watch people and like, that seemed like a really great thing, you guys hit it off. And they're like, are you crazy? I hated them. And it's,
right.
What?
And so then it makes me think, how are people, what am I not understanding when people are talking to me and like treating me a certain way? Like I might think that they are being so genuine, but it's actually really obvious to everyone else that they are not enjoying being
Yeah.
around me. And I go home looking like a fool because I think that it's real, and then everybody else knows that it's not. Like that is also what's hard and embarrassing. And someone recently told me like they said this because they were trying to get under my skin and make me feel a certain way, but they were like, you need to pay attention to how people are acting around you, because you would realize that not everybody is like enjoying their time with you. And I was just like, what does that even mean? Elaborate? Like I can't. And like, that I can't, that I don't know how to interpret these situations. And I think that was the point of the phrase and the sentence, but like still just highlighting and reminding me that I genuinely don't know how to like read people in social situations was a hard reality.
Yes. I mean, Mike can attest to this. Like, after like the first 5 discussions that we had for our podcast, afterwards, I kept saying, oh my God, was that good? They probably think I'm such a dork, and they probably hate me now, and they'll never want to talk to me again because I'm such a, and it's just all of these constantly going through my head every time, because it's like, I didn't understand that it's not my fault to think like that, and that it's not really how people think. And it's just, maybe I don't understand how you are coming across. And I'm misreading it and assuming automatically that, oh, it must be me. Because, again, we internalize everything, and it has to be us. It has to be our fault because, we're not neurotypical. So maybe it's actually kind of flipped. Maybe they're neurodivergent and we're neurotypical.
Right. Well, and that was like one of my biggest fears with this new job and moving and having new coworkers was like, I don't want to mess up, like I don't want to do something wrong or say something wrong or like communicate in a certain way and basically like mess up this relationship with these people because of being neurodivergent. And I'm still like, I still fall into that, like blaming myself and like it's my fault and I'm weird and it's my problem that I need to fix and like be more neurotypical or mimic the way that they interact. And I find myself starting to like censor certain ways that I interact or do something or communicate because I'm worried that if I don't censor or filter it, then it won't be perceived, like my relationship with that person will be like impacted in a negative way.
Yep.
And we shouldn't be scared of that.
No, we shouldn't.
But society has trained us to be scared of that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
We're way past our time.
Well, it's been fun.
It has. It's been great.
And I thank you so much for being on and talking with us. And
Of course.
Real quick before we go.
Sounds like we could just keep
Yes.
going
Yeah,
and going.
I've got lots of questions. But before we go, in the intro, I had said you're a disability and accessibility advocate through your online platform, and we'll talk more about that. Can you kind of let them know like how to find you or
Yes.
whatever you want to say?
Yes, my username is distabled. It's DISTAAYBLED on all of the platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I even have a Substack where I sometimes write stuff when I feel like it. So yeah, that is my kind of way to find me. And I have a lot of little niches, so good luck. I'm sure you found one of them.
and thank you so much for
I'll
doing what you
post
do.
that. I'll post that in the description.
And it's just, I really appreciate you doing that because it has helped me seeing, what you do and how you explain things and feeling like I am not alone is amazing. And I'm sure that if I feel that way, that all of the other thousands that follow you feel that way too. And thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you for saying that. I think I needed that because sometimes it feels like I'm just talking to the void and I don't know if what I'm saying or experiencing actually means anything to people. So
No, it does.
I mean, I don't like that you can relate to the experiences, but if we're gonna be experiencing them, I'd rather be able to talk about it and relate to each other. So I really appreciate that. Thank
Not
you.
a problem. I mean, all of you amaze me because, your strength, even if you don't feel like you're strong, trust me, you are. Because you navigating a world that is totally not meant for anybody but a certain type of person, Mike.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Is hard. And just showing up every day is hard. And then showing up and working on social media and helping. It is brutal. It can be very brutal. But, being there and being a voice for those that just can't, find their voices is a huge service for all of us.
Yep.
And yes, I agree. I hate the fact that the only way that we've all met is because of great pain and disabling issues. But honestly, I wouldn't change it because you guys are like the bestest people I have ever met.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I feel the same. And I can see that Mike is really trying very hard to cut us off.
It's not that I want to, it's just, it'd be a 2-hour episode.
Yes.
I will respect that, and we might just have to continue our
Definitely.
conversation
We'll need
another time. But
Yes.
I really appreciate both of you and having
you.
this space to talk.
And thank you so much for joining us
Yes.
and
Thanks.
for letting me cut you off.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your hosts, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.